July 15th. The meeting is starting at 5:30. I'd like to point out right now, before we even go any further, this is a special meeting and we have a workshop directly after this. So we really need to have a time certain of 1 hour for this meeting. So we're going to do our best to get through everything. And please, at this point, let everybody get settled in. And if you're able, please join us for the pledge. And afterward, I'd like everybody to please remain standing for a moment. Yourselves. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Turn your cells off now if you haven't already. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. That's okay. Thank you. I'd like us to please take a moment. Can everybody hear me? Do I need to? Okay. Take a moment of silent prayer for the horrific assassination attempt of our former President Trump, for the loss of a father, Mr. Comparatori, a volunteer firefighter, a husband, a friend, a man who shielded his family and laid down his life, making the ultimate sacrifice for his loved ones. For the two others that were struck, still in critical condition, and all those who witnessed this heinous act. And please pray for our great nation. God bless America. Thank you. Please sit. Okay. Thank you. All right, let's start with the roll call. Scarlett, if you don't mind.
Scarlett Camping,
Frank Palin.
Mary Viator,
Keith Giordano.
Elizabeth Accomando.
Patricia Farrell, Betty Arcu,
Jay Foy. Rob Robinson. Burgess Hanson. And just for the record, Mr. Johnson may try to join by Zoom, but he has asked for an excused absence.
Absolutely. Thank you. Is there anybody else online at the moment?
I believe Mr. Wortempney, who is also with GL Homes, is
Okay.
online. Tried to promote him to panelist, but he must not want to be.
He took the heat off himself. Okay, I'm just going to remind everybody, please keep your internal conversations low so we can hear everyone and we can conduct our business and hopefully get this issue resolved. If you need to have communication, please step outside and away from the window. It's really disturbing when we're hearing the outside. We can't hear who's speaking in the room. Cell phones off again, please. Thank you. And I just ask that everybody be respectful of each other and their opinions and the decisions that are made today. No attacking. PBSO is here. If there is outrageous disruption of the board doing their business and speaking with staff, you will have to be asked to leave. And that's not something that we want to do. We are also, because I mentioned this is a time certain meeting, we may have to limit comments. So the majority of you that are here, we've already heard from twice. We know your opinion. We know how you feel. We know what you want. You want, satisfaction. What I'd like to do when we get to the comment cards, if you shows that you're in support, we'll just read your name and show you support. And that'll just save us more time to do our business. Mr. Giordano, would you have any welcoming remarks?
Well, I'd like to expound on what you said. We've had a lot of, we need to show unity, like the federal government sought, and say both parties are saying unity. Politics sought global, so we need to be more unified here. Nobody should be attacking each other or the members of this board. We're here to work together, all of us, for the residents that put us in this position. Especially now with elections coming up too. There should be no place to attack other people. Let's just work together and do what's right for this community. And thank you guys for coming.
Patty?
I'd like to, I've said it in the past, say it again. We're all here. We're all neighbors. We all live in Loxahatchee. We all try to do the best decision-making for our community, for the safety of our community. And just remember, that's what we're all here for. We're here for the safety and the best interest of the of their community.
Betty?
I would like to thank all the residents that are here, participating in, what we do is what it's all about. And understanding, how we arrive at decisions is important. And, sometimes it gets messy, and that's what, is life. So, thank you. And, I hope that we can come to a amicable solution tonight.
Very good. Okay, do I have a motion to, for the agenda approval?
To accept.
I'll second.
Any public comment?
Just
Can
through
I-
the chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just want to make one change on the consent for the fiscal impact for item 7.2. There's a fiscal impact of 20,000. It should read 120,000.
That's for the length of the agreement.
Yeah,
Correct.
6 months.
Okay.
Through the chair, that doesn't deduct the other salary though, right? So
Yeah,
it's a maximum.
yeah,
Okay.
yep. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Very good. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I see that it passes. 4-0. We still don't have Michael. Carrie, we have no screens. Is that on purpose? Okay. So we're going to move on to item 6, and if the board allows me, I have a few words to say. So here we are. As we know, GL has offered to put the pipe in, and we understand that they want to make the county happy. And it's understandable from their perspective, right? They are businessmen and they're investors, and they have a lot of interest throughout Palm Beach County. However, it was absolutely unacceptable for me to have an unsafe crossing for our residents, our businesses, and our guests. And where we were previously to just slap in a pipe and move on, leaving 50,000 residents with a liability and a handful of us in this room with a safety risk was unacceptable. As it was when I heard that everybody was just waiting for it to fail. That was not acceptable. The problem was created 15 years ago by them. And really, frankly, the community was failed when that happened. However, I do understand that there were only 5 people really out there at the time, and it was done for the benefit of the tenants, which were the farmers. And 15 years ago, that's pretty much what was out there. So I don't fault them for that. At that time, that was acceptable, but things have changed. And I also understand that, especially in these times, everybody wants instant gratification, right? We all do. I'm no different. I love to have things done right away, right? But that's not always possible, especially in government, because there are a lot of things we have to look at and look into, and making fast knee-jerk decisions will hurt us in the end and hurt the future. We're dealing with a lot of those now, decisions that were made 10, 20 years ago that we're now coming up against that are issues. So I wasn't just going to settle for the bare minimum. And, you know, believe it or not, everybody sitting at this dais is intelligent. And as we always say, we care about the community. We all do, all 5 of us. And I'm going to include Michael, even though he's not here, because I believe he feels the same way. The decisions that I make while I sit here are not for any type of political credit or benefit. We all were elected by the people and for the people, and chosen to make educated and informed decisions, to learn from our area's history and always consider our area's future. I was elected to represent everyone, and I chose to run for office to do my best to protect and preserve this entire community for as long as that's possible. And I believe that we all were. So now some time has passed, and thanks to being thoughtful and mindful and working with staff to accomplish this, we have in front of us a much better crossing that was presented initially that will cost Santa Rosa Groves residents nothing to install it. It will be engineered permitted, approved by Indian Trail, and it'll be safe, as it should have been done 15 years ago. Should my colleagues vote this way, is it ideal? In my opinion, not singularly, but it's not just up to me. Next, I want to address something else. I was told, and excuse me, Commissioner Baxter is here, so welcome. I was told by the commissioner that being the only homesteaded property on Carroll Street that I should not vote, that it serves me a benefit. And we've been through this before. There have also been several residents that stated that I should not vote because they think they know what my vote will be. I've been neglected. I've been left out. My family has been left out in conversations, meetings, the survey that 81 landowners were given. And this was all publicly quoted in the town crier. And even the commissioner's survey I had to ask for. So all of the people in Sunny Urban Meadows didn't even receive it because I have somebody that works for me that lives there, and I asked her and she still hasn't gotten one, but that's neither here nor there. I am a landowner and I'm a resident no matter what. I didn't lose that right when I was elected. And this statement comes directly from the state, as some of us know. One cannot be excluded because of their thoughts or what you think that their thoughts are, or if they don't align with yours or deemed inconvenient. And yes, lastly, I would like to say it was me, and I will take the blame for alerting the district about the failing pipe. It absolutely was. I advised staff when I found out about it. And had I not, I would have been negligent. And that was not okay. So I'm also going to add that anyone that actually knows me, and not many people in this room actually do, but nothing in my life is for my own personal benefit. And the people that know me know that. So that being said, opening the road does actually serve a benefit, not only to myself, my family, my nonprofit, along with all of Santa Rosa Groves, Sunny Urban Meadows, GL, and Tall Pines. Not just me, and not in a direct benefit to anyone. So I'm going to ask Mary and Frank yet again, what is your position on me voting on this?
Whether you have a conflict of interest to the point that you should not be voting on this issue dealing with something in Santa Rosa Groves.
Correct.
I can unequivocally say you do not have a conflict of interest in voting. The standard is whether it involves your personal private gain or the company that you're employed. However, you are not benefiting any more or less than anybody else as a member of that community.
Okay.
So no, I would.
Does everybody understand that statement? Are we going to go back later and say, oh, she shouldn't have voted? Do you understand that I have that right?
Actually, you have an obligation to.
And I'll right, even better, an obligation. So at this point, I'm going to pass the gavel to the vice president. We've already lost a lot of precious time resolving this, and a lot of hard work has gone into it with staff, and it's all dollars that we're spending. So at this point, I'd like to make the motion for GL to install at their cost, subject to legal and engineering approval, which includes perpetual maintenance as required by the engineering and the permit itself. And as it is an ag crossing and a wet install that is being proposed, I'd like to include a gate. However, I'd like that gate to remain open until such a time when future traffic or development requires it to be closed as to not put a burden on the Santa Rosa Groves residents, or we have a resident petition that requests the closure.
Through the chair.
Excuse me, can I finish? I would like it to always, at that point, it would be accessible by the police and fire, of course. And I feel that this decision will align with what the people want, what the district policies are, and what legal opinions of late have been brought to us. So that's my motion, if anybody would like to second it.
I'd like to modify it.
Okay,
First of all, I don't think that GL is offering to put a culvert in with a gate.
they're not.
Okay, so your motion was to accept them installing the culvert with a gate.
No, it was to accept them installing the culvert and then we put in a gate that will remain open until such a time that warrants its closure.
Okay, so then I guess I want to put a substitute motion on the table. Because I'd just like to approve the permit for the agricultural culvert with conditions regarding the surrounding tier, density, intensity, land use or zoning changes that may impact it. The current tier is a rural tier. The current land use surrounding it relates to that rural tier with the exception of GL Homes, which is not a direct connection. And the board reserves the right to revoke the permit with no gate.
Do we have a second on either motion? Oh, you have to ask that. I'm sorry. I can't ask that question or another motion.
I'd like to make another one.
So you want to
You wanna-
amend the
you-
I
motion?
want to amend that motion.
You want to amend the amended motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Based on the interaction I've had with the people in Santa Rosa Groves today. Some of the stuff is good that is, both motions are good, but I would like to make the motion to just put in the culvert as agreed upon without talking about the gate or any other density or anything else till a later date, but the motion I make is let's just do, I was told motion number 2, which was to let GL Homes put in the culvert with the permitting and everything that we discussed.
Who
Well,
told you?
I think
Who told you? I'm sorry, you said you were told. Who told you?
Told me what?
You just said you were told motion number 2. So who told you motion number 2?
Nobody told me, I meant it. Let's not use semantics. The motion number 2 was the one to get the thing done. And that's what I want to agree with tonight, to get the residents out that way deserve, they voted 68 of the 99, I believe, people want it done. GL Homes walked out, but. Okay, GLO Homes said they would put it in, safely with the permit and everything else. That's the motion I want to make tonight as far as the gate, as far as everything else that we just discussed. I'd like that discussed at a later date, but let's get the culvert in for these people is my motion.
well, I don't see why we can't put in some protection. Guys. Please, we've got to put in some sort of protection for the community,
But-
for the future.
Yeah, that's something,
That's-
we'll be here a long time trying to work those things out. Right now, let's just get it done, safely, permitted, and have a workshop maybe down the road to discuss gates and more density and everything else, but tonight, let's keep it simple.
Mary,
Is it through the chair?
wait, I'm
Through the
sorry,
chair.
I'm not the chair, sorry.
Mary, I had asked for you to write some language that would address the zoning and land use surrounding condition. Did you write something regarding that?
Our office did, Mr. Palin. Back.
Could you please read that?
Distributed to.
Thank you.
That's right, I was working this afternoon, so.
Thank you.
Just today.
I would like to request that we hear from GL Homes because I think they have an opinion on this. He's sitting there waving his.
Very much so.
You're,
Give me
you're,
one
you have a
second,
mic.
yeah, come on up, yeah,
She has
hold
a
on one second. So I know you
So
wanted
what
to say
page?
something.
One page.
No, I was gonna ask Mary about this,
Okay.
because I hadn't heard about this yet.
And then,
This
I
was
have-
just prepared this afternoon.
I have a quick question, because I know, when I spoke last week, we talked about putting a safety gate there. Jay, with the traffic that road gets, you're thinking with the engineer backing the design that they put in, that it'll be substantial enough to deal with the traffic and the cars that go over?
First off, we haven't received a
an official application, so we don't know exactly what's in there. However, the applicant's engineer did submit a preliminary plan, which I commented on. They got back to me and there were certain language as far as the soil and compaction that they said they would use that meets DOT. So with those conditions, it appears that a special permit is not something we design. I've said before, I would have designed it a little different. I was asked to look at it as an agricultural crossing, which doesn't meet our normal standards, and I did that. I would have made 2 changes to what they've submitted, but as they are the applicant and they will have a PE sign and seal the plans. I will not try to overrule them as a government entity as they are attesting by signing and sealing the plans that they meet the safety requirements.
FDOT.
Right.
FDOT was for the soils, and I believe it was an FDOT setback from the water as well.
So that we wouldn't need guardrails.
Yes, and the 2 changes I would have made, but again, I'm not asking for these changes. I would have had guardrail and I'd have had flowable fill, or I would have de-watered. But again, since it's the applicant, we would review it in terms of issuing special permit. The short answer to your question is I would accept the communications as long as that communications is put on a plan and submitted to us. I would recommend to the board that it be approved.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good evening. For the record, Larry Portnoy, excuse me, with GL Homes. I wanted to make a couple of comments on some of the recommendations or suggestions on how to get this done. And something that I heard and has come up several times. Supervisor Accomando, you said perpetual maintenance. Neither GL nor the CDD is going to perform any maintenance relative to this crossing, except as it relates to the canal itself. So the CDD will be responsible for mowing the banks and for spraying the riprap. But we are I sit on the CDD board. I am on the board of supervisors. So neither the CDD nor GL is going to assume perpetual maintenance of that crossing. So
Okay,
I need
so-
to make that very clear.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Jay, we talked about this as part of the permit.
The standard
Standard.
condition on our permit is that the applicant is responsible for maintenance. As we discussed, if you were to approve the permit, we would have to modify that condition. And in order for us being an trail to be able to maintain it, it would have to be included in a water control plan, which legal and staff and I have had conversations that we would have to make a minor amendment to the Santa Rosa Groves to be able to allow Santa Rosa Groves to pay for the maintenance. Question came up, what is maintenance? Riprap, the road itself, the dirt under it, and the pipes if they ever fail. So
And we can rip it out.
we would have the ability to rip it out too, but that would cost us as well. But somebody has to pay for that. So it would have to be in an amendment. And we're assuming that amendment would be to the Santa Rosa Groves plan.
Right. Okay, so quietly, with a show of hands, I'm sorry. So
I don't
sorry.
think
I keep-
Portnoy
I'm
is
sorry.
finished, so I'd like to
All
hear
right.
the rest that he has to
Okay,
say.
okay, well, let's get through one section of this at a time. So quietly with a show of hands,
She got.
How? Yeah. not yet, until we're done with this item. Quietly by a show of hands, is everyone okay with adding this section into Santa Rosa Groves and paying for the maintenance? So, Jay,
Yeah, should the riprap slip in, we would be responsible for replacing it. There's riprap on the banks. Should the road fail, we would be replaceable. It's a 100-foot strip of road. We would be responsible for the road rod. Should the pipe do deflection, if the methodology submitted by the engineer, pipes do flex. Everything but essentially our reinforced concrete pipe flexes. Over time with load, any pipe flexes without proper compaction and it gives. And that will cause failure of the pipe and or the road. So all of those things are possible. I'm not saying they're going to happen. But I am saying that is what is involved in maintenance.
so it's not really a question that we can answer and put a number on today.
No, you would expect a pipe to normally last with our standards about 40 years, maybe 50, according to the materials. So RCP would last at least that. Metal pipe, I believe this is, should last the way we do it, 30 to 40 years at aluminum. With deflection, it may only last 20. And if you ever have a gate, you would limit the traffic and impact and load. So and that's why staff likes the gate idea. So it's just a matter of over time, how much will that pipe flex? How much erosion will occur? So you can't answer the question, how much will it cost today? The normal life of a pipe, let's say it's 20 years for this because of the condition. If it costs $200,000 divided by 20 years, $10,000 a year.
Did that answer your question?
Here amongst all the residents.
Okay, so can I see a quiet show of hands? Who's okay with that?
It's $100 per unit per year,
Per acre?
per unit.
Through the chair.
One second, please. Can we just finish this?
That's for maintenance.
Right, it's not every year.
That's not every year.
It's assuming failure and needing to fully replace. it
Right.
In
So-
20 years,
so
but it could be
GL
30.
So GL is going to only maintain certain portions of it. Larry, not the roadway itself, right?
Correct.
Right. So the roadway is not going to be maintained by GL. It's going to have to be maintained by Indian Trail and it's going into our unit. So this is going to be an extra cost that
It's
we're,
already been maintained by ITID. We've been grading it all along.
But without cost to Santa Rosa Groves.
No, they've been paying for it.
They've been paying.
We've been doing it. Who's been paying for it?
Through the chair.
yes.
Yeah. So unit 20, they have their debt repayment for the bond for capital improvement, but they also are assessed a maintenance, which would cover any grading or canal vegetation.
Which
control,
right
but not
now,
this particular
Excuse me.
canal.
So,
The grading there would be.
so they're already paying for that section of it. Now, in addition, they would have to pay for the potential replacement in 20 to 30 years. Is that what this is? Okay, so in addition to the maintenance that you're paying already, you would have to pay an additional $100 per unit for the replacement, the future replacement of it. That's what's being said. Am I saying that correctly?
I'm not the chair.
So,
Sorry.
If you replaced it at today's dollar cost at 200,000, as Supervisor Argue has stated, that if you removed it, it would be the cost of removal only. So that was a real quick off the top of my head answer
Right.
to what maintenance could be.
But
There's
I think we're just trying to get, an idea, so they understand what they're voting for.
Do the chair.
Okay, so I know Keith had something here, but he had it a minute ago before Burgess. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to, okay. We're in the internal improvement district.
Guys, please keep it down back there, please.
Santa Rosa Groves is part of the internal improvement district. If, I'm just gonna use an example. The pipe over this canal, if it fails, Indian Trail because of collecting fees, taxes over the years, we gonna have to replace it.
Well, I think there's a difference there because that's
already
ours.
existing water
Yeah,
control.
but this is in CDD territory. So
Okay,
that's the
that's
issue.
thing I'm
That's
saying.
the issue that we're having here.
Included into their regular maintenance
Right.
with the grading of the road and everything else. If the pipe fails 20 years from now,
Yeah.
after they do it, it's not included in their
Their impact.
non-ad valorem taxes or anything.
Okay, so I know Betty had something she wanted to say. Betty?
I just want to say that it is not appropriate, in my opinion, to be surveying on specific issues without having all of the information, first of all. Second of all, we're talking about unknown circumstances. There is a projection that the engineer can make that, a steel pipe can last 20 years. We have some that have lasted 60 years in this district. So, it's hard to say. It could be 20, could be 60, it could be less than that because, of a defect or something else. But the point is that if we have to accept responsibility of the maintenance of it, we can add it to the Santa Rosa Groves plan, and we can plan for that in the future. But there are other things, unknown circumstances. I've heard things about increasing traffic, which is the reason why I put that condition in there, that the increasing traffic is a changed variable that culvert is not designed for.
Correct.
And if there is some changed variable, we would be in a position to revisit that, get direction from the Santa Rosa Groves residents. And maybe at that time, if we're dealing with another developer that they want that access, then we talk about what improvements the residents want, or do we want to remove that? But quite frankly, I think we're making this far more complicated than it needs to be. I think we have an offer on the table to pay for it. And I think we've got a reasonable condition, and it's a minor amendment to the water control plan. And we can move forward with that and call it a day. And I think everybody will be happy with that.
Please.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I think Ms. Argue clarified that, but I just wanted to add that we would not charge an annual maintenance for the maintenance of that culvert. Whenever it goes, then we would look at
And
it
you
at
would
that
assess
point.
it then.
And as we move forward and they become more, as their capital improvements
Develop.
are at a certain level, then we would start putting in reserves. And if it's part of the water control plan and this culvert goes, then those reserves for that unit 20 could be used to replace it. Or if a culvert fails, where we put it elsewhere in 20 as well. So that's how we handle it.
Very good. Keith.
Yeah, basically, based on my motion 20 minutes ago is exactly what we just said. Let's take the offer from GL Homes and the other stuff that is brought up.
Hold on, Larry.
Let's look at it down the road, but let's tonight approve to let GL Homes put the pipe in with the permitting and everything so that these residents can get their road back. That was the motion I made 20 minutes ago.
Subject to engineering.
Engineering.
Okay, so we should let Larry say.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry.
I wanted to comment on the gate. Our interest in doing this, we were approached by various board members and employees of the district. We want to be good neighbors, and we were contacted numerous times by Commissioner Baxter's office. Between all three of those is why we decided to do what the offer that we're making. However, when you put up a gate, it's in essence cutting out sunny urban meadows, that this is a Santa Rosa gate or road only. That's not what we signed up for. We were trying to help the larger impacted group from this district. And a gate is something, at least at this point, we are not interested in. And I would almost, it's not comforting for me to listen that we'll do it at a special workshop because I'm not saying we wouldn't do it, but we haven't had ongoing discussions internally of the impacts of a gate. But leaving it to a future meeting where we don't have a say-so because the culvert's in, kind of just off the top of my head is saying, I'd probably want a condition in the permit that states a gate cannot be put in without our approval. We're not looking to do this for a smaller group. We're looking to do this for the benefit of everybody. It was never intended to be a permanent fix. It was to buy you time where you can come up with another solution, you know, to put in a more permanent bridge. But this will buy an awful lot of time. And again, we're trying to do at the direction of the commissioner. We're trying to be good neighbors to everybody, not just a select few.
Well,
Time out. I have,
I just want to clarify, I wasn't asking GL to pay for the gate.
It's not a matter of paying. We may not want the culvert in if it's only going to benefit a few.
excuse me 1 second. So, but
Hold on, because if you actually listen to what I was saying that the gate would remain open, not closed.
Until such time where factors determine.
Right.
I don't know what other factors determine. So that's too nebulous for me sitting here. And again, I've not had the opportunity to speak with others at GL. I'm more speaking for Larry right now, but I know how GL feels about a lot of things. after being there for 35 years. And if we don't have, we're kind of control freaks. If we don't have control or a say so in something, then it's not a comforting thought. Why
Right.
we're doing this now and we lose all control later.
So, and here's, I think the issue that we have is that you guys are putting this culvert in and then it's tying into our property, into the land, Indian Trails land. And if there's an accident that happens on it because of an issue being maybe too many cars are going over, maybe the heavier vehicles are starting to erode it, it winds up becoming a liability issue for Indian Trails, not just for GL, not for Citrus, Cypress, sorry,
Sunny
Cypress
Meadows,
and Sunny Urbans, right? So it winds up being a liability issue for Indian Trails. So I think that's why we want the option for a gate to be there is, okay. So I believe that that is why we're looking at the possibility of putting a fence there would be more that if it's getting used to the point where it's gonna start eroding, that it's limited more. From what I remember, wasn't it, when we talked last week, was it for like more of an emergency? Like to allow emergency staff?
So the
First
staff
responders.
recommendation from engineering and administrative staff, because legal really has nothing to do with this. It's because it was being agriculturally installed,
Right.
wet install.
Right,
We were saying there needed to be something because maybe not right away, but down, and this may be more for Mr. Foy, but down the road, the wear and tear on it.
Right.
So, and what our concern was, if more development occurs in the western areas, whether it's Sunny Urban Meadows or other areas that GL Homes does not own, it could have an impact, and we did not want to be responsible
right,
from a liability standpoint.
right.
So that's why, but through all this, as we met with Mr. Portnoy and his team, we came up with something else. And I know Miss Akamundo or Miss Argy may have talked to them as well. But in our discussions and my discussions with Mr. Portnoy is as his letter outlines.
Okay, so 1 second. So I'm gonna be honest with you. If we're putting the culvert in and we're going to allow people access on and off, for now, I think we can hold off on doing the gate. I think it's something that if it winds up becoming an overuse, maybe we can go back to GL and talk to you then about it getting overuse and there's some damage happening and we need to do something to limit it and just keep it for first responders. So I think the motion as stands with, I think Betty, what did you add on to
My
it?
motion was to include conditions that we reserve the right to revoke the permit if surrounding land use, zoning, intensity or density changes. And at that time, we would obviously be looking for feedback from the community and be
Correct.
working with the county and
Everybody,
whoever
right.
else. Yeah.
And did you have something added on to that for that motion? What did you
took
change?
that off.
I took
No.
all that off, except let's go back to the option 2 to get the road done. But I would like to amend my motion to include if at such time down the road, some of the stuff that Ms. Argy brought up and Mr. Portnoy actually said, they should have the rights to come to the table and sit down and make changes to this culvert.
So,
We aren't under,
Well,
just to clarify, we're not adverse if circumstances change. But we want a seat at the table.
correct.
We want to say yay or nay
Right.
as to whether or
And I
not
think
that
that's
occurs. And at the proper time, we're very reasonable people.
Right.
It's just, we don't want to do this blindly, and that's what it feels like.
That my motion is to bring you guys
So why
back to
don't
the
you
table.
Right, so what time out? So here's what I'm going, here's what I would like to know, okay? So we have Betty's amended motion to Elizabeth, and then we have Keith's amended. So do we vote on Keith's amended motion?
Well,
No.
yes,
Like-
you call the vote.
So
for
we have to
Keith.
vote for that first, correct?
You have
Didn't get a
to-
second.
Yes, you have.
We have to get a second on it.
To have
Okay.
things be
But you
in
call it.
All
motion.
right, so I'm gonna call, do we have?
Haven't had a second.
I-
But
Yes,
I wanna
that's
hear-
what I wanted.
Do you want to hear from the public? And I do want to state something
Well,
else before we move.
Do we have to put a second first before we can hear? from
Yeah.
you?
Yes,
Yes.
All right,
absolutely.
so do we have a second on Keith's amended motion to Betty's amended motion to Elizabeth's motion?
All right, hold on, let's clarify this, because Keith then said he was going along with everything Betty said. So are you then?
Convoluted.
Right, we gotta clean this up. So basically you're saying everything on this list here And
Like
bring-
land use and zoning.
Right, if any,
changes.
and are you saying that if any of these things changes, we want to get back together and meet with GL and everybody else?
Yeah.
So basically you're seconding Betty's motion. Is that
That's what
right?
I'm
I'm
saying.
Except
in your
to,
mouth.
like, to accept that, that if anything's done, GL Homes needs to be a part of the discussion.
I
Their
think she said that,
permit.
yeah. She said that with saying that they would have to discuss the permit. So I think you're supporting Betty said, so please second it.
Well, he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
His can fail and
Okay.
mine can be called.
Right. All right, so are you,
Nothing. Second.
okay.
You're seconding.
Seconding
which one?
Betty's motion.
Betty's motion.
I'll read my motion again for
Yes,
the
please.
record. So my motion for the record is to approve special permit number SP 0553 RW with conditions and attachments submitted by GL Homes for a culvert agricultural installation, subject to legal and engineering review, with conditions if the surrounding tier or density or intensity or land use or zoning changes, the board reserves the right to revoke the permit. Period.
And can I do it?
No.
Yes.
The addition of GL Homes being brought to. the
I think
table.
that's already there with with the permit.
It's their
Yeah.
permit. If you want me
Yeah.
to specifically state GL Homes and Community, I can certainly do that.
Please do.
GL Homes and Santa Rosa Groves to be included in discussion.
Through the chair. Can you add specifically that the maintenance requirement is not to be part of the special permit is issued because
That was, yeah, actually, I was gonna make a second motion on that.
second motion.
A second. So we could, maintenance to be assumed. Maintenance to be assumed by ITID, and then the second motion would be to add the culvert to Santa Rosa Groves Unit 20. Right?
Yeah. We would proceed with the process. We can't
Culvert
guarantee,
maintenance,
we can't guarantee that you as the board will actually
Right.
approve the water control
Right.
plan
right?
and the public has to have input. So it would have to be contingent upon that water control plan being approved.
And the permit being approved.
Well, the permit can't be approved until you have a maintenance entity decided. So what I'm telling you is your water control plan has to be amended in order for us to assume the responsibility of maintenance.
Can't we approve amending the water control plan tonight? I mean,
Absolutely not. You have to have a resolution amending the plan. You can do it at the next board meeting. but you cannot do
That's
it-
not till August because we canceled the July 24th meeting. So then we're looking at December before we're even doing anything.
No, you do it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mary. Did you want to finish?
I think what Mr. Foy brought up is the maintenance responsibility.
For the
Just
water
came to
management.
my attention today that GL Homes was not going to assume all of the maintenance responsibilities. So if in fact we go forward with issuing this permit, there is going to have to be right now, it's unit 20 that's going to be responsible for amending their plan so that they would be responsible for those additional maintenance responsibilities.
Through the chair. Did we amend the plan to remove the culvert in the first place?
It wasn't in the plan.
No. it
Oh,
wasn't
so
in the
who
plan.
paid for it?
Was it in the?
Who paid for it?
General Indian Trail because it was a liability for the entire trail. But I actually had
Yes,
asked.
go ahead. Yeah.
So did I answer your question?
Yes, you
Yeah.
did.
So what I was going to suggest is, it's not like they're gonna go out there in the next 2 weeks and drop, we still have to go through the
Permit.
process and all of that. So we can work on the minor amendment and try to get that done, because it is a little bit faster than
Very much,
normal.
very
Yeah.
much.
I think they plan on having it done in the next 60 days, correct?
Yeah, that leads me to a question. I'm kind of trying to get my arms around this. I understand if there are land use changes. I understand, I don't know who, another builder has bought some land out there and they may try to increase density for additional houses. So I can understand your concern if additional houses are coming that weren't anticipated. You want another seat at the table with whomever that this crossing may need to be upgraded. But when I hear the term permit being revoked, we expect in less than 60 days from the receipt of the permit that this crossing is going to be in. So are you talking about revoking a permit over the next 60 to 75 days?
Well, no,
What, I don't understand that at all.
Can I just clarify, Because my thought, and I've discussed this with legal, is that in revoking the permit, we would reserve that right to revoke the permit, which would also mean removing that culvert. If there was a change in land use and zoning surrounding, and Larry, you and I had discussed this, right? Currently, your land use, your whole site plan does not connect to Carroll Street.
That is correct.
But in the future, if that were to change, that's a material change, that's a zoning change or it's a change, it's a direct connection. Right now, there's no direct connection to GL Homes or to Sunny Urban Meadows. So that would change, and that culvert is not going to be designed nor capable, based on my discussions with engineering, for a major subdivision to be built there. It's based on a rural agricultural standard, and that's why I support it. I do not support it if the intention is we've got other plans of things that are going to be built out there that nobody at this table is familiar with, and we expect to be able to use that agricultural culvert for it. At that time, I think we need to be having another discussion. And as you and I discussed, you don't control any of that except for the land use and zoning for your property. There are other things going on in the area that potentially could impact it. And I think this board and the community will want to discuss it when we get there.
I understand. I can very much appreciate it. It's really land use changes that's resulting in more density.
Exactly.
It's not just the zoning. The zoning follows the land use.
Mhm.
So if you're going to put conditions in there, then we would, in accepting the permit, we would like to see it more tied, because we ourselves have the ability to shift density from our plan administratively with the county. And we plan to do that for that Cowan parcel. We are not going to line up with Carroll Street, but I don't want to have be back here sitting at the table after we just were big, we just made this donation. And now because we're moving some units that were going to be built further north into Cowan because we have so much excess land, I don't want to have to come back here and start negotiating that, hey, there's a change in zoning. So if you're going to stick a condition in there, I would request that it be tied to land use changes, which permits additional housing. That will cover all of my bases and give a lot of flexibility, and I think protect the board as to what your concern is.
Well, hold on,
Impact.
hold on. So I'm listening to all this, and I couldn't imagine sitting out there in the crowd and listening to this, because this just seems like a much more complex issue than just throwing a culvert in there.
It's actually
And
very complex.
I'm very nervous by making a decision right now on something that could have an effect thereafter. That's, I don't, yeah. Hold on. Who had it through the chair? I think Keith had it first. Go ahead, Keith.
I think we're starting to overthink this and put.
I don't think there's I don't think there's overthinking. I think this is a large issue that we really can't just throw a culvert out there to satisfy people that are upset because we took a culvert out just to get the culvert back. I think we have to make sure we're looking at the big picture and understanding that, okay, if we get them to put this culvert in, but then we have issues, it's going to wind up coming back at us. I really think that we need to pump the brakes a little bit on this and make sure that we're doing everything properly. And I might make a lot of people upset, but it's,
Well,
that's what I'm thinking.
The thing that I was getting back to is the motion number 2, which is the culvert's gonna be the culvert. We need to get the culvert in, and then we need to discuss what ifs.
No, it's
Bring
never to
people-
discuss the what ifs after. It's better to discuss the what ifs now and get everything nailed out.
Oh.
No. This is a discussion with the board.
Here's,
But
one second.
it's not like we're gonna take, what's the material that we're gonna use for the culvert?
It's not we, it's CDD's. using it.
What material is?
The draft proposal was corrugated aluminum pipe, if I recall, right?
That's correct. That's it. Through the
Okay,
chair.
so what,
Yeah, hold on.
I'm sorry, because I never got a chance to actually finish my point, so before I got jumped on here. So my point was, through legal, can you just explain what is necessary for a minor amendment for the board as well as for the public and for Mr. Portnoy?
Okay,
So it's not this long drawn out process.
Okay, we've gone through the drawn out process already for Santa Rosa Groves. And that took over almost 2 years, I would say. And that
5
was
years.
done, could it be 5? Okay.
5 from the beginning, the
Okay.
very
All
beginning.
right, well, we'll go back to the beginning, but anyway. What you do is you create your geographical boundaries and that creates the specific Santa Rosa Groves unit development, which we did. And then you have a proposed water control plan. So first we had the process whether the residents wanted to be activated. We had a public hearing and they had, following that public hearing, the board went ahead and says, yes, we're gonna work with the landowners. After that, you've now got your geographical boundaries established. Then what do? You talk about what's going to be in the water control plan. What capital improvements are going to be included in that? So these residents, landowners will have benefits as a result of these particular improvements being constructed. So then we had another public hearing to make sure that the landowners were in fact happy to, agreeable to them to have those improvements constructed with the understanding that they would be responsible for that if in fact that was approved. It was approved, the plan that we've been trying to implement now. So then the next part is we've got the plan, then the district engineer comes up and proposed benefits to the land. What is the benefit? What benefit did you all as landowners receive by those particular improvements being constructed, whether it was the relocation of the right of ways, the canals, whatever? There was a public hearing on that. And so with the district engineers, engineering certification, that was approved. So that then gives us the procedure or the authority to go forward with doing your proposal. What we're talking about today would be a minor amendment, whether the Santa Rosa Grove landowners would be, we would add that responsibility into your water control plan. And then that would then be adopted. It's a expedited process. Basically, the board directs the preparation of that resolution to authorize the, basically the maintenance responsibilities, the gate is what we're talking about. And that would be approved at the next board meeting. And as part of that, you would also amend a minor amendment to the water control plan to include that improvement. So is it a long extended process? Absolutely not. You've already gone through the long haul, but we cannot, I won't go any further on that right now. So
Ms. Foxworth, just to be clear, so tonight the board could give direction, hey, Jay, Burgess, start on this minor amendment. We bring it back in legal, start, and then we bring it back on August 21st. And
Yes.
then it becomes
yes.
part of the water control plan.
And
And at that time, you could, if we need to come back with the permit, so we could have the total bundle. So we can make that change, that approval, if the board so chooses. And then the residents will know that they're going to do it, but they will be, because the Santa Rosa Groves residents are going to have to be responsible for the maintenance responsibilities that are not being assumed by GL Homes, because if not, we have no ability to have that maintenance. So there has to be a vehicle or a mechanism in place to maintain that structure.
Mary, do we have to wait for that, for GL to do it? So let's say they get us the permit tomorrow and you guys look at it and you say, this is fine. We go ahead and you approve the permit. Can they put the pipe in prior to, being that that's maintenance and that's not coming let's just say this year, we're not going to need to do any maintenance. The pipe will already be in. If we add it, if we do the resolution in August, I don't see that delays the installation, correct?
Yes, it does.
Well,
Can Mary answer?
well, we need to have it so we can do it. So you are going to have the legal authority to do that with the understanding you're going to be able to maintain that infrastructure. That's what the issue is.
And the
It's-
amendment can be legally challenged.
Well, I got one more thing.
It can, but the challenge process is not the same as with the, certainly a lot less complicated.
So in other words,
process.
what's being said is that you guys, all us, can say, no, we don't want it added. All right, so, but my concern goes back to changing it from land use to density. Because as we know, we sat here a year ago and there was a proposed park that nobody wanted. That is not going to increase density, but it is definitely going to change land use. So this is a really slippery slope when we're saying to change it to density.
No, can I clarify my motion because
on
I've been
1 second.
trying to do so
Hold on
since
1
Larry
moment.
made his
Hold on
comments
1
and I think
moment.
we're wasting a
Frank,
lot
go
of
ahead.
time.
But I just want to perhaps give Mr. Portney some comfort. The district has an existing agreement with Geo Homes, which handles how the district will, and the developer will handle how their property is developed over a long period of time. That's thousands of acres. The issue with and there are traffic studies to show how that traffic is going to be distributed. This crossing was never part of that calculation on Geo Homes part. The issue in my mind has been, there's other property out there that's not owned by Geo Homes. There's quite a bit of property out there not owned. There's an entire section of land north of Santa Rosa Grove that's not Geo Homes and not part of the Geo Homes development. FP&L has another section of land that they haven't developed yet. They might decide to sell it and develop it as something else. And then there's a whole bunch of land to the southwest, between the canals, basically, which could be developed as something else. Right. So in those areas, that's what I thought we were talking about in terms of land use. We're not really concerned at the moment about how GL will handle the development of its property, because we already have an agreement in place. If they make significant changes in their property, we already have an agreement in place. The issue here really is, if there's going to be more development on other lands out there, that's going to generate a significant amount of traffic and change the distribution of the way traffic flows out there. And that distribution somehow requires the use of this crossing. How are we going to handle that?
So can I clarify my motion, please? I would like to say, it was always my intention that the density and intensity, of course, we're talking about increasing it. At a rural level, it's low. It's 1 in 5, 1 in 10, 1 in 20.
The
So-
density usually refers to residential development.
Density is
In- in-
residential.
intensity is
Density is
non-residential.
Non-residential, and so non-residential would be recreational property or commercial or industrial property.
Could be a lot
So
of
if
things.
any
yeah.
of those things were to change, right, which is a land use change and a zoning approval, then that would be a material change, an increase. That's what I'm talking about. So if you need to add the word increase in there, a change in land use, density or intensity, or zoning changes that will increase the impact on the culvert. Right?
Yeah, it's the volume or character of the transportation,
Yes,
a motor vehicle traffic, and I would suggest non-agricultural.
yes.
Non-agricultural land.
If if you don't mind, Frank, it's just that this culvert that's being designed is for a very special use that's in existence now. And I think that's part of the concerns. And, whether it's maintenance or whatever, that there needs to be some type of control as to what it is. I mean, will contribute to a rural agricultural crossing. But what if everything around in that area grows up? And that you have all different changes and uses, that particular crossing would not be suitable for that type of all the magic words.
And at
That's
that
the
point,
purpose of my condition.
I understand.
because Indian Trail owns that piece. Indian Trail, in my opinion, has the right to consider how its property could be used for the benefit of the community. However, Indian Trail defines it, the community. We need an opportunity, and the permit is a chance to, if we have a condition in there that says if these conditions change, then Indian Trail has an opportunity to reconsider the decision that the board is considering tonight. And that might include closing, it might not, it might include, who knows what 10 years from now, the options are going to be.
Okay, Keith,
Okay, we're getting a meeting that's going too long for this.
Is there a
The thing that. I have the floor. The thing that you guys, if I was Mr. Portnoy and GL Homes, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm walking out at you. Because now you just said this culvert is now land use that's gonna be affected by all these other thousands of acres that's not even his. What we're trying to decide tonight is let's put a culvert in that meets these specifications here as an agriculture with engineering, legal, safety issues, so that the road can be open. We need to address the other. We need to discuss. Once land use is changed for all these other thousands of acres that you mentioned, then we need to bring GL Homes and everybody.
How do you propose to do that if you don't have?
No,
Come
stop.
on.
So,
Then we need to consider if all this stuff is changing, like you said, then we need to bring all the parties involved, the other landowners on
okay.
that's changing the
Alright.
use. And bring that back in, but right now we just have to.
Keith,
get.
that's, okay. We understand what you're saying. You've said it. Do we have a second on her motion? Do we need to read
I
this?
believe Mr. Giordano did make a second.
Okay, so we have a second on the motion. Okay.
Was that correct?
How would we like to move forward? I mean, it's 6:30. We have,
If you reread the whole motion.
yeah, hold on, please. So, well, I think what do
Let's
we
get the
do?
concept. Is the concept for right now was the motion made by Ms. Argue that was seconded by Mr. Giordano, which was subsequently revised or
Okay.
Lost track of it.
detailed by Ms. Argue. That's the one that we're talking about.
Do we have it written down
Well-
exactly?
I do.
All right, I'm gonna have Betty read her motion again.
I think that would be.
Please
helpful.
read it
We've got
again.
bits and pieces of.
Yeah,
Motion to approve special permit number SP 0553 RW with conditions and attachments submitted by GL Homes for a culvert agricultural installation, subject to legal and engineering review and subject to conditions or with conditions that if the surrounding tier, land use, or zoning changes increasing density or intensity, the board reserves the right to revoke the permit. GL Homes and Santa Rosa Groves to be included in that discussion, and maintenance is to be assumed by ITID, and legal should put it in their legalese.
okay.
I was based,
Do you second that?
yes,
Okay, all right. So now here's my question,
Through the
Mary.
chair.
but
Hold on one
He's
moment,
got a
please.
question.
Larry,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Larry.
I'm sorry. Included in the discussion is not what I said.
That's what I said. So
I said we would want it in the permit that we get to say yes or no. So we can veto.
Included in the
Be-
discussion.
Having a seat at the table with no authority doesn't do any good at all.
I'm sorry, Mr. Portnoy, but you're asking for us to approve a permit that if anything changes, we may not have the right to remove it in the future, and I can't support that. Now, if you are willing to pay for a culvert today with these conditions, then I can support that. But I am not going to carte blanche approve a permit that says we can't control what happens in the future on our land. Won't do it.
No, it just says you
Through the chair.
can't gate it without
Okay.
our approval.
Through the
Oh,
chair.
you want the gate? I'll put
I'm
that
only-
in there.
I'm okay with the balance of, I'm okay with the rest of your motion.
Instead.
I'm only after the gate.
You don't have the money
Okay,
for it.
How much? It's $20,000. And this way, if and when the
Okay.
time comes, this was my point, have it there, if and when all this happens, we
Elizabeth?
know,
Okay.
then we can lower it.
Okay.
Solve the
Hold on,
problem.
hold on. We're getting, let's,
okay.
hold on. Okay. So as of right now, we have a motion, we have a second.
Right,
It is now 6:35. We have a meeting starting at 6:45.
yes.
Should we recess this part of the meeting
No.
or should we, excuse me?
You can recess it, or you can make a motion to extend it for a 5 or 10 minutes.
I think we're gonna need a little more because we haven't even done
We need to
public
get
comment yet.
to, right, and we need to get.
Through the
to
chair.
Okay,
next.
hold on, please.
I'd like to modify my
Okay.
motion.
One moment, please. So, okay, please stop. So what I asked now, so we have a first and a second, so we need to extend it. We still have to do public comment and we have to do consent agenda. Okay. So could we, instead of doing public comment, could we say all those in favor of the motion? Can we just get a raise of hands? How can we do this to where we can expedite it? Hold on one moment, because Betty has to.
All right, well,
Already heard,
Sorry.
right, and we've already had 2 public.
well, we have
comments.
2 public, but
Right.
if there is a need to have additional comments with regard to this matter, that's certainly,
We can table it till after the other meeting. if we want
Yes.
to,
we could table it.
So we
There's
can
no
recess
time.
this meeting right now and then bring it back
After the workshop.
after the
Absolutely.
workshop.
Or,
Okay.
or our rules of procedure say we can hear it from the public once. We've heard twice if they're willing to waive their public comment.
Okay,
That's an option.
so how do we find out if that's what they want?
The board decides.
Okay,
the
so the
board-
board decides.
Yes.
So,
You have control of your big,
so do I just unilaterally ask, if we're okay? We've heard it twice now. We've heard their public comment twice on this subject. We know that they want the culvert. We're working on getting it. Are we good with waiving public comment tonight on this topic?
I'd still like to hear from the public, but I think I'd like to modify my amendment and see a show of hands and then table the item until after the other workshop that we had scheduled long before this issue.
Thank you.
To be fair,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
So I will propose an amendment, which I forgot about. To add that there is to be no gate installed. And Elizabeth, with all due respect, I have serious concerns about a gate that have not been discussed. And I don't think we have enough time to get into it.
And I would like to
Tonight.
discuss gates a
Alright,
little
so-
bit further too, so I think recess
Okay.
is smart.
Go ahead.
Just
Just-
through the chair.
Yep.
There may be problems with us recessing this, starting another one, and then trying to restart this, because I just heard from Carrie, so I don't know if you want to continue this and then.
So just extend the time and
let's
let's,
make a motion for a short extension.
okay. So should I extend it to 7:00?
There's a motion, have a motion
Okay.
from your board.
Can I get somebody to make a motion?
Extend this meeting to 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
So I amended my motion to add,
The no
there's
gate.
no gate to be included, so you need to give a second.
All right, do I have a second to amend the gate? No gate.
I'd like to modify my approval for a first motion.
Do you second my motion, my amendment to my motion?
Do you say, you seconded her motion already? Do you agree with?
I withdraw my second until I,
No, you do the second so that you can hear everybody and then you can vote yay or nay to it.
but I think we need to modify that motion that she just made.
To what?
I think Mr. GL Holmes should have some protection because they're worried about, we're gonna come out next week and.
Through the chair, Ms. Argue made a pertinent point, and this may be illegal. It is your land, it is property. This is not some connection that is on GL property. This is the district property. So you do not want to give up
Yeah,
your
you're
right,
not here
what
to
you do
protect
on
GL.
your
We're
property.
protecting you.
Yeah, I don't wanna, I don't wanna, I wanna protect the residents, I wanna get that culvert in, but
Right.
I can understand GL Holmes as a business person. He's worried that we're gonna just decide for some reason to pull the permit.
Absolutely.
There's certain
I'm-
criteria that you
Okay.
have to meet.
I'm passing the gavel back over. I'm sorry. I want to move this along. I'm going to second her motion, her amended motion to Elizabeth.
For
I'm
being
seconding.
Betty Argue.
Betty Argue, yes, I am seconding her motion. So we're moving on. I've given the gavel back. We're going to open this up to public comment. Can I get the public comment card? I gave them back to him.
Yeah, actually, it's gonna be that.
Well, I'm confused right now.
And
But any comments need to be limited to the
1 minute
to
and
the proposed motion that is on the floor.
if,
So we're giving 1 minute? I'm sorry.
that's okay. Yes.
if you don't mind, can I address it
Yes.
to the people about this so we can try to expedite this quickly?
If you like.
To the Santa Rosa Groves residents, when you're coming up, please, if you can try to limit your comments to whether or not you support the motion that's on the table or you don't support it. We don't need to hear a 10-minute speech that we've already heard because we're really short on time. I love you all, but I really just want to hear if you support it or you don't. And if you want to state specifically what your objections are, then that's great. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so I have Rob Watson. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, board members. I support the motion that's on the floor with the no gate.
Thank you. Brandon Cabrera. Brandon Cabrera, 13094 Compton Road. Camden.
Good evening. I support, actually, I guess the more direct is I do not support, you guys being able to revoke the permit, that condition. I support having the culvert put in and not having any gates, up as a part of the conditions. That's my opinion.
No.
Ready. Sarah Baxter. Before you speak, Renee Hamilton, you're going to be next if you'd like to speak.
Good evening, everyone. In the essence of time, and we have a lot of speakers, I will say, I actually agree with Brandon. I do support option 2, but without the gate and without the revoking it later, I do not want to see any dollars, just because it's not taxpayer dollars. It would still be potentially wasted dollars of a culvert to have someone pay to install it and then rip it out. I mean, I would hate to see that happen. So thank you.
Commissioner Baxter, wasn't it the whole idea, the last meeting, that we were just gonna put this in until we figured out where we were going from there? So that would require us to have the ability to revoke the permit if we decide to do something else. Obviously, that permit would go away.
Well, then I guess I would be okay with the option to revoke, but only if something improved was going to be installed.
Okay, and while you're there, just forgive me, and just real quick. 20 years ago, and I brought this up to you, 20 years ago, the people of Sunny Urban Meadows paid the county $100 per acre to pave 60th Street. And they also turned over some easement rights. And in return, they were promised that the bridge would be realigned, the deadly bridge that we have out there, and that the extension, we'll call it, of 60th, which turns into 59th, was going to be paved. At that time, and obviously you weren't there and none of us were standing here. So this is something we really need to look into, because these people spent their money and gave up their land and paid for something with the promise that they were going to get something else. And because the city of West Palm gave the county trouble about realigning the bridge, and I asked Larry if they were coming across that in their agreement, and they haven't gotten there quite yet to that point. So why is it 20 years later that road has not been improved for the people of Sunny Urban Meadows? So and I'm not asking you for an answer because obviously you weren't here, but if you could look into that and see, because if you think back 20 years, $100 an acre was a good sum of money, and they lived up to their end of the bargain, but unfortunately the county didn't. So I would appreciate, especially if people are going to be relying on the extension for an escape route, so to speak, it should be able to be passable, because on June 13th, it was not. And we only had a few inches of rain and that road was a disaster. So please, if you truly care about all of us out there in the Western communities, look into this and see what happened and where the failure was and what the county can do instead of waiting for GL to build that road. No, please, no, please.
So that isn't why we're here tonight.
I
but
understand,
will
but I
absolutely
wanted to
look
bring it
into
up.
And you can
Yes.
please email,
Yes,
set up a meeting and we'll meet with the
Excellent.
staff and see where we can go from there.
thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Okay, so I have Renee Hamilton next, and then after her will be Mort Williams. Mort Williams after that.
Hi, I'm Renee Hamilton, 17934 Temple Boulevard, Loxahatchee. I do not live in Santa Rosa Groves. However, I do support putting the culvert back in. I do see additional truck traffic and agricultural traffic coming through my area because of the lack of ability to go through that area. I also wanted to comment because in the beginning, Elizabeth or Miss Accomando had mentioned that this board wants to be educated and informed and not make knee-jerk decisions. However, when you guys voted on this, you were not educated and informed about what it was. It was a 3-minute decision made without clearly identifying all of the issues and the purpose of the road. It was hidden information that should have been clearly divulged to the community and shared with the community when that decision was made. In addition, a knee-jerk reaction was to yank that culvert out without having it inspected. So I think you need to do right by your community and put the culvert back in without a gate. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, Mort Williver.
Excuse me, one
What she
second.
said,
1 second. After Mr. Williams will be Jane
it's Williver.
Williver. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what she said. I support Betty's motion. It makes perfect sense. The restriction or however you said it, the change in use makes perfect sense to protect us. And absolutely do not want a gate. Don't even understand that period. Totally against that. Thank you.
Okay. Williver. After
Guys,
Williver
please, we're
will
trying to
be
get through
Renee
this.
Hamilton.
Jane Williver, resident in Santa Rosa Groves. Again, what this lady said is exactly true. The hypocrisy needs to stop here. We need the culvert back in. I'm really concerned about hearing that the July meeting has been canceled here. And that things can be even further delayed. I hope the board will reassess whatever they need to do in order to make the culvert go in as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Guys.
Mr. Guerrero will be Mr. Dirks.
Good evening. So obviously I'm voicing certain residents that I'm close to, and we think GL having control is of concern to us Santa Rosa Groves residents. There are very few actual residents that live in Santa Rosa Groves. Residents versus investors' interests differ, especially when it comes to costs. Any added costs is an issue to us residents, whether it's maintenance, installation, or removal, including added costs by opening path to sunny urban meadows and other farms near us. Thank you.
After Mr. Dirks, we'll have Danielle Rudas.
Last Saturday, a resident reported gunshots on their property and they called the sheriff. The sheriff got blocked at Carroll Street. Took a long time to get around. 90% of the residents out here want this replaced. Gates are unacceptable. Replacing it benefits more than just the Santa Rosa Groves residents. I'd like to thank 2 supervisors. I'd like to thank Betty Argue for working steadfast and tenaciously from the beginning to help us. Thank you, Keith Giordano, for answering and returning phone calls from residents who are desperate to speak about this issue. And thank you for respecting the voice of the majority. I also want to thank Burgess Hanson for reaching out to hear our community representatives' thoughts on the proposals. Thank you, Jay Foy, for your common sense and reasonable approach. And finally, I'd like to thank Larry Portnoy and GL Homes for your generosity.
Guys.
Danielle Rudas.
Hi, my name is Danielle. I'm representing myself at 20296 Antoinette. And I want to say thank you to GL Homes for helping us out. And I want to second Betty's motion as well. And we don't need a gate. That's all.
Am I reading the ones that just say they support, or am I just?
I would just say, read their name and say we support, and it's on the record.
one here that was, Juan Gamboa, do you still want to speak?
Hey, boss, I'm okay.
Okay. I have 8 cards here that are in support of the culvert being put back in. And that's it.
All right, I just want to clarify something. The culvert wasn't removed in a knee-jerk reaction and it was inspected. It was dried out. Uh, Guys, can I speak? Okay. It was dried out. Dirt was removed, and before they even got to the pipe, staff could see, and we have video of that. So it wasn't just, we're just pulling it out because we want to. So I'd like that narrative to stop. And I'd also like to bring up a point that there are gates all around this community. And there have been residents that didn't want those gates, and those gates went up anyway for different reasons, which I'm not going to discuss tonight. But before everybody, before everybody jumps down anybody's throat, there are reasons for that. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So if you guys want to vote now or.
I think we can call it for a vote.
Okay, so.
Wait, just, we need to understand the maintenance responsibility needs to be.
It's in
I
my
have a card
motion.
there.
You had a card to wish to speak?
Yep.
What's your
It's
name?
in my motion.
Yandri.
That GL Homes and SRG to be included, maintenance to be assumed by ITID. And my second motion is going to be,
Is unit 1.
Right.
Andrew problem.
and my second motion is going to be direction to staff to
Fine,
start.
Fine.
It's right there. All right.
Sarah Baxter spoke and she wasn't even a resident, and now you're turning down a resident to speak?
Are you good? Guys. All right, can you allow us to do our business, please?
I think we are doing it correctly. I think he did not check, he wished to speak. He just put that he supports.
Okay.
So, well,
Okay, well, there's procedures. I'm gonna. No, let him speak. That's fine. We've got 10 minutes.
1 minute.
Yeah, he's got 1 minute. We have 10.
I want to make sure because there was rumors, so I have questions. If the culvert is not open, will we be assessed fees for using ITID roads?
But Mary, I'm gonna let you answer that
Who is
because
we?
this.
Us
This
Santa
has
Rosa
to-
Groves residents.
Okay.
Now, the responsibility, you would be paying for assessments for the culvert and the maintenance for that culvert. We have not expanded that for the Santa Rosa Grove residents to be doing maintaining other units.
That's not what I asked. If the culvert is not opened, are the residents of Santa Rosa Groves, are we gonna be assessed fees for using other ITID roads?
So Mary, let me clarify, as we've discussed this at nauseum at this point. Units are not assessed for each other. So if that were the case, think about every time you go to State Road 7. Are we paying assessments to every single unit? And this is something we need to talk about in the future on how this all works, right? So units don't get assessed into each other. Could the board turn around and decide at some point they want to change that? Sure, anything is possible. But right now, we're an active unit. If we were an inactive unit, that would be absolutely different. We just went through that with the people on 180th. But right now, there is no board policy in place for units, active paying units to pay into each other.
Through the chair, I am sorry, but I cannot let that stand. Because I was here and I understand the units of this district and how this district works better than anybody here, okay?
Better than the
And I can
attorney?
tell, better than the attorney sometimes, yes. And I can tell you.
All right,
That
that's
when
a
we
little
created
uncalled
Santa
for.
Rosa Groves Unit 20, it was on the basis of a connection to 60th Street. If there is not going to be a connection to 60th Street, the next discussion we're having is that they need to be paying for the impact on Unit 4. And it is not acceptable to say that it is okay for them just to pay R3 when, and of course, I was going to try to not say anything about this if it wasn't necessary. However, a couple of months ago, we propose to assess certain residents an exorbitant amount of money that was unit 4 maintenance fees, R3, and an administration fee.
Who is not an active
And-
unit.
And
Big difference.
it's the same,
It's not the same.
benefit.
It's not the same. It's
You
not a
pay for
direct
benefits,
connection.
direct or indirect.
All right, we're done. We're done.
So-
We're done. You, DeAndre, call the attorney anytime. You know the number. If you need clarification, legal clarification, we're not going to have this argument now. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So I'd like to hear from the attorney.
I think we have the motion on the floor and that's where this discussion should.
I think it's important to the residents to actually understand that point, Mary. So I would like that brought back to the August meeting.
No problem.
Okay, so can we call it for?
Yep. So let's call the vote. We're voting on Betty's motion that you seconded to
I
just,
seconded.
wait, sorry. All right. So Betty made the motion, Patty seconded it. So it's based on the amendment with the clarification.
I've read it twice into the
Yep.
record.
So it's in the
And
record.
an amendment.
Start what? Well, they have to provide us the permit. They haven't even submitted for the permit yet. So we don't know. They gave us what they assume it's gonna be, but we have not actually received the permit yet as of from the district. Do we have a date, Larry? Do you know when the permit will be submitted?
It'll probably be this week.
Okay,
The plans are all done
Okay.
and we're ready to go. We've actually even ordered pipe in anticipation of where this was going to end up.
okay. So, and again, this permit is subject to legal and engineering review and approval. Just to clarify.
That was in my motion.
Okay, let's call the vote. All in favor?
Is Michael?
Okay, see that it passes 4-0.
Thank you.
All right, next, guys, please, moving agenda, we did the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent
I
agenda?
make a motion to, excuse me.
Guys, please, we're still trying to conduct business for other people too, so please exit quietly. Thank you so
I make a
much.
motion to accept the consent agenda, or to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, any public
Yeah,
comment?
Betty argued.
It doesn't matter. Keith was first. Guys, please, we're still working here. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See that it passes 4-0. All right, meeting has been noticed correctly, Mary Scarlett. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.